Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
SLT Mobitel, එකම එක සබැඳියාව. IWS Aviation.
A very good evening. Welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Mariam Vijayratna. Let's have a look at the headlines first. Government pursues stable energy supply. Island witnesses improved business confidence. News in detail. LMD reports that despite the protracted period of suffering in recent months, Sri Lankans are gradually reclaiming a sense of their previous existence. This has been attributed to the decline of long queues with basic necessities in higher supply. The LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Index has risen 32 basis points from 49 basis points registered in the consecutive months of June and July to 81 basis points in August. In August last year, the barometer recorded 98 basis points and upward trajectory thereafter until March this year. It's hoped that the current gain follows a similar inclination. However, one must be mindful that the BCI is still uncomfortably below its all-time average of 125, and the climate of optimism that prevails today is very different from what the nation was experiencing in the first quarter of the year. Nielsen IQ's Director on Consumer Insights, Terika Miyanadeniya, maintains that the introduction of the QR code and rationing of fuel has greatly reduced queues, but added that the immediate concern is the high rate of inflation. Globally, pundits predict that the world is on the brink of another recession. This will impact countries pursuing economic recovery in the aftermath of the pandemic, along with the repercussions from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Sri Lanka has improved its fuel and cooking gas supply, but citizens are under pressure as the cost of living escalates and basic food and services grow increasingly unaffordable. Small and medium-sized businesses are struggling, which may mean that the working poor will be unable to earn higher wages despite seeing their disposable income dwindle. The business community views the interim budget proposals along with the outcome of IMF staff level agreement to determine the index for next month. However, the number of corporates who were doubtful about the economy improving has diminished from 83% in July to 73% a month later. LMD remains hopeful that the turnaround in the business confidence index could be a sign of things to come. The Cabinet of Ministers has approved the new tariff for purchasing electricity from non-conventional renewable energy sources. NCRE sources includes biomass, agriculture and industrial waste, and excess power from agriculture and industrial waste of the same industry. The standardized power purchase agreement will continue for NCRE projects with a capacity of up to 10 megawatts. The tariffs will have a non-escalable fixed rate on 3 tiers, and it will be effective from 1st September till further notice. It will consist of a fixed rate, an operations and maintenance rate, and a fuel rate. The 3 tiers are for a 20-year-long period. The first tier is for 8 years, the second tier is for the next 9 to 15 years, and the third tier is for 16 to 20 years. Meanwhile, the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka Chairman Janaka Ratnayaka yesterday warned that Sri Lanka might lose 900 megawatts of coal power generation. This would be due to the unavailability of sufficient coal stocks, and the ramifications of it will have to be borne by the public in the form of long power outages. The PUCSL chairman maintains that despite having renewable energy and water in the reservoirs, he said there is still a high risk of not getting the coal on time to generate power during November and December. Ratnayaka says Sri Lanka still has to pay $50 million for the previous coal consignment. He also pointed out that 30% to 40% of the demand is generated by the Norotchole coal power plant. The PUCSL chairman stressed that the country must procure sufficient coal at least by early next month to sustain the economy. In relation to this, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara has requested that the Committee of Public Finance conducts an inquiry into the procurement of coal. The Lanka Coal Company Limited called for tenders for the procurement of 4,500,000 tonnes of coal. However, allegations arose which brought into question transparency and pricing. In an exclusive interview with Art Television, Secretary General for the Joint Apparel Association Forum, Johan Lawrence detailed how government decision-making on energy impacts local industry.
So on the electricity tariff hikes, they were expected. I think, to have a situation where you have no increase in tariffs for 10 or 11 years is unreasonable. But where we have the issue is the way the whole process was done. But unfortunately, what happened when the final tariff came out, it bore no resemblance to the tariff that was put out as part of the consultation process. And, if you put out a document in the for consultation and you call for public opinion against that document, to then come out with rates which are much higher just doesn't seem right. And our issue is not so much in terms of the increase, but the process on which it was done, and particularly that a document that was circulated as the proposed tariff was not the final tariff that came out. So I think that places us in a difficult problem, and this was the point we made at the public consultation as well, is that this has to be a two-way process. If the policy is that CB revenue has to be covered through the tariff, then we also need to look at what the CB's cost base is, and CB is notorious for not divulging that information, and this is just not on. So as businesses, our request is that things like electricity tariffs are on a fixed schedule, so everybody knows, for example, once a year, once every 2 years, or whatever it is, the tariff is due. These are the criteria against which a tariff increase is set, so that then businesses can look at that and they can model and they can plan ahead, and they know that it's going to go up. What we talked about policy and consistency of policy, and this is where it's key that we have a consistent policy that says this is the model, this is the transparency, this is the basis on which electricity rates will be done, this is the level of cross-subsidization that's going to happen, this is the level of subsidy that the Treasury will give, and these are the factors that we take into account when we review prices. And then businesses can plan.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
More data when you stay and use more. Data Bowl 1, data Bowl 1.
A non-stop journey with Data Bowl 1 from SLT Mobitel Home Broadband.
Welcome back after the break. Prime Minister and Public Administration, Home Affairs and Provincial Councils and Local Government Minister Dinesh Gunawardena yesterday announced a rapid national program to strengthen the economy through villages. The National Program for Rapid Empowerment of Grama Niladhari Division as Centres for Rural Economic Revival was initiated by involving all parties from Grama Niladhari Division level. The Prime Minister said that this national program should be implemented with the cooperation of not only the public sector but also all parties at the village level. This includes the private and cooperative sectors as well as the political authority. The Prime Minister mentioned this while participating in the inaugural discussion to inform the government officials, including district secretaries, to launch the national program for rapid empowerment of Grama-Niladhari divisions to function as rural economic revitalization centers. Economic revitalization committees are also appointed at the divisional secretariat level, as well as the Economic Revitalization and Food Security Committee appointed in each Grama-Niladhari division. This process will be monitored by a national committee. This national program is being launched to ensure rapid re-strengthening of the rural economy as well as national food security in the country. It is proposed to transform the economy of the country in the next 2 years by strengthening the relationship between the public, private, cooperative and non-governmental sectors. It is planned under the national program to constantly monitor through an e-data system the agricultural, small and medium-scale businesses of all families, including health status, poverty eradication and nutrition enhancement. Meanwhile, the government has extended 242 acres of farmland to strive for a massive cultivation drive to ensure food security and nutrition. The National Livestock Development Board has identified 8 farms in the 3 districts coming under its purview and has called for a fresh round of bids from local investors to develop those lands to boost crop cultivation. The farmlands will be leased on a short-term basis to encourage crop planting as part of increasing local produce. The object of the initiative is to maximize the underutilized farmland for yearly crop cultivation of maize, cowpea, ulundu, green gram, kurakan, gingerly, meneri and fruits. Sri Lanka's leading food and organic product exporters urge the nation's premier product testing laboratories to enhance their levels of efficiency and effectiveness. This is expected to enable these exporters to provide a superior service to their overseas customers. These sentiments were aired at a recent meeting organized by the Sri Lanka Export Development Board to provide a platform for the exporters and product testing laboratories in the island to share their requirements and capacities with each other. During the meeting of EDB advisory committees on spices and concentrates and Ayurveda and herbal products and cosmetics, a request was made to have a meeting between product testing laboratories and exporters. The aim was to identify product testing facilities available at different institutions to obtain the required test reports as well as certifications locally to comply with the regulations of importing countries. This will minimize the substantial foreign exchange spent annually on test reports from labs located in foreign countries. The representatives from participant firms at the event made comprehensive presentations to brief exporters on the testing facilities available in their institutes. Meanwhile, Galab Laboratories Germany joined the event via Zoom and made a presentation about their services and facilities. The officials of Control Union, a global network of inspection operations and dedicated laboratories, and the Sri Lanka Accreditation Board, the National Accreditation Authority of Sri Lanka, also took part in the interaction and shared their thoughts and observations with the participants. Expressing his view, Chairman of EDB Advisory Committee on Spices and Concentrates, Nanda Kohana, pointed out that exporters face undue delays when receiving reports from local labs, and as samples have to be sent to labs overseas, 10 to 15 million US flows out of the country every year. Joining the discussion, Chairman of BIO Foods, Dr. Sarath Ranavira, remarked that it is necessary to improve credibility and recognition of local laboratories among overseas buyers. Testing laboratories agreed to share updated testing and certifications with exporters while pledging to minimize potential delays as much as possible. The EDB intends to take initiatives to further improve the links between exporters and laboratories to align them with export requirements. Official reserves among the Fitch ratings of portfolio of rated sovereigns in the Asia-Pacific region fell steeply in the first 7 months of 2022 with the strengthening of the US dollar. Many sovereigns in the region still have substantial reserve buffers, but for a small number, the fall is an indication of mounting external financing stresses. Reserves among sovereigns in the Asia-Pacific region declined roughly 590 billion US dollars between end 2021 and end July 2022. Valuation effects contributed significantly to this trend as the US currency's strength has reduced the dollar value of non-US dollar reserve holdings. We believe that some of the decline also reflects moves by certain regional central banks to support their currencies, offsetting depreciation pressures that might otherwise have added to improve inflation. For many sovereigns in the Asia-Pacific region, reserve buffers have fallen to pre-pandemic levels after a significant rise over the past 2 years, partly driven by pandemic-related factors including demand compression. The largest declines in value terms over the first 7 months of 2022 were in China, Singapore and Japan, all from high levels. Singapore's 31% decline between end 2021 and July 2022 was driven by a transfer of reserves from the Monetary Authority of Singapore to GIC for longer-term investment. Some central banks with more comfortable reserve positions, including the Reserve Bank of India, have deployed them to support their currencies. Should the regional decline in reserve be sustained, this would eventually put downward pressure on rating for some Asia-Pacific sovereigns. The fall in reserves so far in 2022 has been moderate in the Philippines and Indonesia, while high commodity prices have temporarily strengthened the latter's external balance sheet. Bangladesh's reserves fell by 16% between end 2021 and end August. It is seeing a multi-billion-dollar loan from the IMF. However, official data shows almost 39 billion US dollars in reserves at end August. If secured, an IMF program would provide additional assurance about the country's external position. For some frontier markets, large reserve drawdowns reflected the scarcity of alternative financing options amid mounting external liquidity strains. Lack of foreign exchange also contributed to Sri Lanka's default on its external debt in May 2022. We'll be right back with the stock updates.
Sponsored by
SLT Mobitel එකම එක සබැඳියාව.
Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The all-share price index gained 104.89 points to close at 9,704.21, and the S&P SL20 gained 62.26 points to close at 3,131.29. The turnover was 4.1 billion rupees and over 173 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. That's all we have for tonight. Have a great weekend. Good night.